Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's Salitha here with Rivers and Zippers. If you are new here, welcome. I am so glad that you stopped by because today we are about to finish up our first piece for our spring capsule wardrobe, and that is the collarless coat. I know you're going to really enjoy it. If there's some steps that you need to really pay attention to as we sew this piece. So without any further ado, let's get started. Okay, in the previous video, I showed you guys how to make room on the front lining. Okay, remember we went out 1/4 of an inch on the side seam, and then we went up 1/2 of an inch on the underarm, and then we went out 1/2 of an inch on the armhole. So we're going to do that same thing before I cut the lining out for my sleeve. So I am going to need to adjust the original 2-piece sleeve block, and I'm only going to have to adjust the upper sleeve. So I'm just going to go ahead and put everything to the side, because what we want to do is we want to make sure that our sleeve matches the sleeve opening of our lining. So this is my front lining and my back lining. So what I did was I walked my sleeve cap along the new lines, and so now what I'm going to do is do the same thing for my upper sleeve. The only thing that I'm concerned with is just the sleeve cap. I'm going to adjust it 1/4 inch out and 1/2 inch up, and then I'm going to taper into my sleeve, and that's going to be perfect. Okay, because we're going to taper in and 1/2 inch up. All right, so now I'm just going to taper around and taper down. Okay, so here we have our sleeve. Make sure to smooth it out and add your hem. Okay, so here's my sleeve, upper sleeve and under sleeve. This is my lining, okay, all prepared and ready to go. Let me show you the other pieces of lining that we're going to use. Okay, so now let's also look at the other lining pieces. The front lining you have and the back lining. Okay, I cut them 2 pieces for each on the straight grain. Okay, I made sure to make all of my markings so that when I get over to the sewing table, I am ready. You're going to need to have a lining for your pocket, okay? But I want you to take note that I have a guideline here, because half of my pocket is going to be my fashion fabric. And for my fashion fabric, it's only going to be from the seam to the middle of my pocket, and we'll talk about that when we get there. The other piece that has a lining is my coat front. Cut 2 fabric and cut 2 interlining, because I'm going to have this serve as an interlining, and an interlining is a piece that is sewn just as if you were sewing your fashion fabric. So we'll talk about that when we get there too. But the reason why I have this cut out is because I have a pocket. Remember, we have a pocket, and when you open up your coat, you don't really necessarily want to see the pocket. You don't have to do an interlining if you don't want to. You can just go ahead and line the pocket with the bias binding however you want it, but for me, I'm going to have it covered by my lining. Okay. Now let's talk about all of the interfacing pieces. All right, so we have a lot of pieces that serve as interfacing. All right, so we have our back interfacing, we have our front interfacing, cut on the grain line. The back interfacing is cut on the fold, all right, and you are going to put where the shoulder has the notch, you're going to go ahead and ease that in. So you have your back interfacing, your front interfacing, and again, make sure that you mark all of your pieces. We have the side interfacing, the front interfacing, the upper sleeve interfacing, cut on the straight grain. Everything is notched and marked. And we have also the front interfacing. Now, because of this particular type of interfacing, this is a open weave interfacing that's very strong, armo weft, but it's very short. This is about as long as wide as it gets. So I wanted to cut my interfacing on the grain straight. So I had to, what I did was I cut at the waist and I just made two pieces, but it's fine because it's interfacing, okay? And it's fusible interfacing, so that will work just fine. So let's talk about some of the other things that go in the inside of the coat. You're going to have your sleeve cap, okay? This is a manufactured sleeve cap. This one is pretty long. I'm going to cut it because this is about 14 inches long, okay? For women's wear, it doesn't need to be 14 inches long. And then you have your shoulder pads. The last piece of the inside of the coat is my chest piece, but I also have a piece of just regular cotton fabric that is going to serve as a barrier between the hair canvas, which is thick and prickly, and my fabric. You don't want to put the hair canvas directly on your fabric because the hairs will come through your fabric. So you need a barrier, just a piece of cotton, so that your hair canvas comes on. So of course you know what all the other pieces look like. Okay, so that's for interfacing. I have to point out one thing. We will be cutting strips of interfacing throughout the process because you need interfacing for the hem of your sleeves, you need interfacing for your pocket seams, and you need interfacing for the hem of your coat. So it's just a small strip. No need to cut it out beforehand because they need to be measured once you seam your pieces together. All right, so let's head on over to the sewing machine. Okay, so the first piece that I'm going to work on is my chest piece. I have my hair canvas and I have my cotton backing. I'm going to use my zigzag stitch to create pad stitching along the hair canvas on both pieces. The hair canvas will shrink just a little bit, and then I'm going to use my widest zigzag stitch to attach the hair canvas to the cotton. Next, grab the two back pieces and you're going to sew your back darts. Leave enough tail on the thread so that you can tie them off. Do not back stitch here. Alright, so I've marked all of my notches and then I put pins. Now, when you get to your back vent, I want you to remember there's a 1/2 inch seam allowance and then a 1/2 inch seam allowance here, and then you're going to stop. Don't forget that you have your seam allowance also on your vent, so you want to make sure that you don't go past. Pivot and then stop. So you're going to just snip, and we're going to press our seam open. Okay. Once you have everything nice and flat, go ahead and grab your back interfacing. Make sure that the sticky side, which is the rough side, is facing down towards your fabric. Again, you're going to just press and hold. All right, so that's my one piece done. Okay, again, make sure it's within the 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, just want to show you for your side back, you have a curve here. This is the princess seam. All right, so we want to create a E stitch from the notch to notch. And so what you're going to do is pull on the bobbin thread, and you're going to just ease that top part just a little bit, so you'll be able to fit it into the seam. Try not to have any puckers, okay? Just ease. Okay, let's take a look. I want you to see how there are absolutely no puckers. One thing I want to mention is I want you to see, can you see how this little tab right here? So here's my 1/2 inch seam allowance. I also had a notch on the side, back side here, a tiny little notch. So I matched up those two notches, and when I did, I have this tiny little triangle. This tiny little triangle that sticks out. That's what you want, okay? Why? It's because when you open up your sleeve, you want your armhole to continue in one straight swoop, all right? And that's how you get that effect, by making sure you're gonna have that little tab, okay? Now we're going to do the other side, and then we're also going to press our seams open. But what I need to do first is I need to snip my curve. And this is exactly how you want it. You do not want it to be puckered up. So when I turn it over to this side, it's nice and flat. I'm going to measure my sides. So I cut out 2 strips, 14 inches long and 1.5 inches wide. So just going to go ahead and fuse that. Okay, so this is the back part of my jacket. I just want to show you how the seams are set here, nice and flat, okay? The jacket is going to hang while I work on the front part, so which is a good thing. You don't want to ball it up and put it anywhere. You want to make sure that it's in a nice place hanging. So if you could put it on your mannequin, that would be a great thing. All right, so we're going to come back, but first I'm going to start working on the front part. So the next piece that we're going to put on the front is, remember we made our chest piece. So we are going to go ahead and baste this chest piece on. First we're going to stay stitch on our neck. You're going to be inside the seam all the way up, and then you're going to go ahead and baste along the shoulder and baste along the armhole. Then once we have this basted, we're going to go ahead and put our interlining. Now I'm using this lining fabric as interlining. What you're going to need to do is to baste, because this is going to be acting as part of the front. Now when you get to the pocket section, you don't need to baste that close. You're going to leave that section open. You don't have to baste the bottom. Okay, so go grab your pocket. Okay, so first let's cut the interfacing. Alright, let me show you how I made this gorgeous pocket. So we have the interfacing on one side, we have our lining, and we have our fashion fabric. Notice that the fashion fabric is as close to the edge of the pocket as possible. How do we do that? First thing we needed to do was to create a guideline, and so I stitched all the way down from the top to the bottom. So first thing I want to do is I want to find my notch. So I have a notch at the top and I have a notch at the bottom. And here is my fashion fabric that I want to be here. Okay, so the first thing that I want to do is I want to pin my fashion fabric to my lining like that. What I want to do is match my notches. Okay. So now let's turn our fabric around like this, so that you find that line. Okay, so now let's pin. Okay, so now all you have to do is just cut this off. And then when you turn it, you have the back side with the interfacing and the front side like that. And you have two. Now, the only thing I need to do is I need to just baste here. I'm just going to edge stitch. Alright, so just edge stitch and this pocket is done. Okay everyone, that's it for today. That is just the first lesson. We have come a long way. Today we learned a lot. In this lesson we already did our interfacings, we already put our back together with the side backs, we already did the front, and we did an awesome pocket. That was a lot of fun. So in the next video we're going to do a lot more. We're going to attach that pocket that we just created. We're also going to put on our side front that has the grown on pocket. You know what a grown on pocket is, right? In this case, the pocket is part of the side front, so that's awesome within itself. And as we keep moving forward in the next lessons, you are going to learn so much more tips and techniques, so I know you're going to want to be here. So don't forget to like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell so that you can be reminded when the next lesson comes up. If you're enjoying what you're learning, you're not going to want to miss a thing. So I will see you in the next lesson.